And what's going on, Read My Lips people? We are back. So, I've got to do an update. I've got to do a continuation on the video I did yesterday about Andrew Yang and whether he was for Medicare for all and if the Humanist Report smeared him. Because I've seen the outcry, A, and then B, it was like the floodgates opened up, which I knew was going to happen. After I saw the comments that Andrew Yang made pertaining to Medicare for all, I knew it was only a matter of time before progressive channels alike went at Yang's neck. I knew it was a matter of time. So that's why I had to drop that video yesterday talking to you guys to get your take on it, because I really wanted to know where things stood. And I knew the floodgates were going to open up, and like that, they did. So there's a lot to get into. We have a lot to get into today. So buckle up and stay with me the entire time if you can, okay? We've got so many different things to touch upon, and so many different things just based on the comments in my comics section that we have to get to. So, where to even begin? Okay. I'll start with a comment, a couple comments that I've gotten. Does Bernie have a patent on the phrase Medicare for all? Does he have a copyright on it? No, Bernie doesn't have a copyright on the term Medicare for all, no. However, he does not own the verbiage Medicare for all. However, when the talk is Medicare for all, the person your mind immediately jumps to is Bernie Sanders, because he's made the conversation about Medicare for all, right? He brought it to light. He made it the conversation not only in this run, but in the prior run. So he made it a thing. It's single payer, right? But he's termed it Medicare for all. Example, using Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang believes in UBI, Universal Basic Income, but his term is called the Freedom Dividend. So if another candidate came along and they said, oh, I'm going to do I believe in the Freedom Dividend, and then when you looked at the other candidate's policy on it, and you looked at Yang's policy on it, if the other candidate's policy was askew, or it took something out, or it changed something, it wouldn't be the Freedom Dividend. It may be an ulterior version of Universal Basic Income, but it's not the Freedom Dividend. It is not the policy that Andrew Yang is putting forth. When you think of Freedom Dividend, the person you immediately reflexively go to is Andrew Yang. It's the same thing with Medicare for all. The person you reflectively go to is Bernie Sanders. And other candidates have coined other Medicare-esque phrases for themselves to separate themselves from Bernie Sanders, because immediately when you think Medicare for all, you think of the Bernie Sanders version. So you've got Medicare for choice and Medicare for all who want it, and different different phrases. And I actually give a head nod to them for making these different phrases, because if they kept calling it Medicare for all, it wouldn't necessarily be true. Now, I'm going to talk to you guys as if I was a progressive YouTuber that's super pro Bernie, okay? This is because I feel like the Yang Gang needs to understand how they're going to come at you, right? This is how the Bernie supporters and the Bernie bros, let me clarify that, how the ultra super hardened Bernie supporters and Bernie bros are going to come at you, because you can support Bernie Sanders and not be as, adamant or super hard left as some of these progressive channels are and some of these progressive people are. So they are going to battle what you say or debate what you say. And I'm going to give you some of the things they are going to say. Some of which is true, some of which is a stretch. So one of the things I've been hearing, one of the things I've been seeing is Andrew Yang believes in Medicare for all. He just doesn't want to do it immediately. I've gotten a ton of that in the comment section. He doesn't want to do it immediately. No candidate wants to do it immediately. It's actually impossible to do it immediately. Every candidate that believes in some Medicare or Medicare for all service has a time frame. So Andrew Yang would be no different than anybody else if he believed in Medicare for all and he had a certain time frame for it. Kamala Harris wants to do her Medicare choice in 10 years. Bernie Sanders wants to do his Medicare for all in 4 years. Andrew Yang may want to do his version of things in 5 or 6 years. But nobody, no candidate is doing it immediately. That's just not happening, right? Another thing, people are saying that Bernie Sanders wants to eliminate all private insurance, full stop, while Andrew Yang wants to keep some private insurance. Bernie Sanders does not want to eliminate all private insurance. That is fundamentally untrue. Bernie Sanders wants to eliminate all private insurance except for elective procedures, right? Except for elective procedures. So majority of private insurance will be gone, but it is not true that all private insurance is going to be gone. There is still going to be some private insurance for the elective procedures. So if you're one of those people saying that Bernie wants to get rid of all private insurance, full stop, that is untrue. Okay? So some of the comments I've gotten were this. In Canada, we have private insurance. We can use private insurance. We use private insurance. It's a thing. We're not like Bernie where he wants to get rid of all private insurance. Here's the thing. Canadians can purchase supplemental private coverage for services that are not covered by the public plan, but cannot purchase private insurance for basic services. All right, I'm going to repeat that for you. Canadians can purchase supplemental private coverage for services that are not covered by the public plan, but cannot purchase private insurance for basic services. All right. So it is not the case that, yeah, we can use private insurance if we want. We have it in Canada. We can use it. It is not the full picture. Okay. So if Andrew Yang is proposing a Canadian-like system, then I'm for that. I'm completely 100% for that. If the model he's presenting is a Canadian model, then I'm for that. Now, for my Canadians or for the people who know these things, in Canada, some of the things that aren't covered are eyes and dental, right? And so you would need private insurance for those. Now, Bernie Sanders' bill actually covers eyes and dental. So it gets rid of even more private insurance than the Canadian system. If you think that's too far left, if you think that's just too much, then okay, I hear you. If you think getting rid of those private sectors as well, the teeth and eyes, is too much, then I hear you. If that's too far left, then I acknowledge what you're saying, and that's cool, and we can do a Canadian-like system. I am perfectly okay with that, especially if that's what Andrew Yang is referring to. Bernie wants to cover eyes and dental as well. Canada has what is known as a single-payer system. We call it single-payer. So when you say Medicare for all, it's not like everybody else around the world is using Medicare for all. That term was indeed propped up by Bernie Sanders. But Canada has a single-payer system that is where services are provided by private doctors, right? But the entire fee is paid for by the government at the same rate. Now, it's should be known that not everything in Canada, again, and I'm okay with the Canadian system, not everything in Canada is always completely covered, right? So if you were to had to take a ride in an ambulance, right? You still pay for that ambulance ride, only a portion, right? Most of it's covered by health insurance. So you'd pay something like $45. That's what the normal fee is. Compare that to America, that's a drop in the bucket. So those are just some things that I noticed in the comment section, and I noticed people reaching out to me, people whom I respect, people who I don't know. They're saying Andrew Yang is for Medicare for all. I think one of the issues is, right, and this was suggested by some of you, is that Yang needs to call it something else. Because Medicare for all is a term coined by Bernie. Medicare for all. Like that term in itself, that Medicare for all, those three words is a phrase that's been coined by Bernie. And it's triggering the left. You follow? It's triggering the left. Because when you don't fit that complete narrative of what Bernie Sanders has proposed as Medicare for all, right, and you call it that, it triggers them. So if Andrew Yang has his own version of things that doesn't fit Sanders' motif, it would be best to call it something else, because every single time it's going to bother the left, or the far left. I keep saying the left, but the far left, if you want to call it that. It's going to trigger them every single time, and they're going to say, no, you're not for Medicare for all, because this is what Medicare for all is. Boom, 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 boom. And if you don't fit that exact narrative, they're going to attack you. All right? And I've heard Yang's plan, or at least a bit of Yang's plan, and I get it. I get what he's saying. I get where he's coming from. And I see he wants the private sectors, he wants them to compete, and he eventually wants them to fizzle out. Like, I get his vision. And in his future vision, he believes in a Medicare for all system. He has a different route of getting there. That's all it is. He has a different route. But since he's calling it that, it's triggering the Bernie supporters. Now, guys, I knew the floodgates were going to open. I knew the fact that Yang said the things he said in the manner that which he said it, it was going to trigger a lot of people, right? Especially the progressive YouTubers. The Humanist Report, as I covered yesterday, you can click on that link above in the card, came at Andrew Yang's neck. All right, here's a small clip.
A reason to panic, because politicians, they have to prove to us that they support the policies they say that they support. Just expressing support for it in this day and age, that's not enough. Like, you have to really look at the details. You need to press them to make sure that they prove to you that they support these policies. And the fact that Andrew Yang now is saying, I don't support Medicare for all, this is good, but it's frustrating to me that he still has this on his website. Like, if you're watching this, Andrew, you need to remove Medicare for all from your website because you don't support Medicare for all. It's misleading. Now, what he is conceptualizing with regard to healthcare reform is, if we do a public option, my goal with that is to kind of drive out the private insurance providers, right? Have something that's so competitive, that's run by the government, that people can buy into, that we're not really allowing much room for these private companies to compete. The problem with that is it's totally unrealistic, because a public option is doomed to fail. So this is why now, when we're talking about healthcare reform, to settle for anything less than single payer, we're idiots if we do that. Because this is what's going to happen. If we pass a public option, we can make Medicare for all and the fight to get true single payer even more difficult long-term to get codified into law. And I'll tell you why that's the case. Because as Dr. George Boumfock of Physicians for a National Health Program put it in a September op-ed for the Charlotte Observer, there are two fundamental reasons that a public option cannot work. The big solvable issue in our healthcare system is the 30% of every healthcare dollar that is squandered on administrative overhead, paperwork, the pre-approvals, denials, and appeals that are an integral part of myriad for-profit private insurance companies. That's around $1 trillion every year. Only a single-payer system like Medicare for All can cut that $1 trillion in half by eliminating that bureaucratic waste. That half, $500 billion, can be redirected to providing comprehensive healthcare to all Americans. It's not free. We'll pay for it in taxes, which for most of us will be less than what we're currently spending on premiums, copays, deductibles, and other healthcare expenses. We'll pay less in the end for more healthcare for everyone.
All right. So that's you know, that might be a one-off. This might be a one-off. Okay, the Humanist Report came after him. But then the Rational National also came for Andrew Yang's neck. Here's the clip.
Okay, so it was kind of low. Apologies for that. But he said that Medicare for All is too disruptive. The Medicare for All bill is too disruptive. Too disruptive. But too disruptive for who? Is it too disruptive for the people that can't afford cancer treatment? Like, what is your position here? So, on his website, he says he supports Medicare for All, but clearly he does not support Medicare for All. And this is a theme with Andrew Yang. He does not challenge wealth and power. So he doesn't support Medicare for All. He doesn't support the minimum wage increase. He doesn't support a federal jobs program. When questioned on Israel-Palestine, he just gave in and said, well, Israel is one of our closest allies, so, you know, whatever. Like, he doesn't, to be super fair to him on that issue, it's possible he doesn't know anything about what's going on there, but he clearly, and also that isn't being fair to him because he should know when he's running for president, but he doesn't have any interest in really challenging wealth and power. Now, people will say, but the freedom dividend, you know, the UBI. Well, how about that? Because that challenges wealth and power. No, it doesn't. Because his freedom dividend, his universal basic income, is paid largely by a value-added tax. Let me read a little bit from the week here on what exactly that means, in case you don't know. So let me find the piece I want to get to. Here we go. All right. So in brief, a value-added tax, a VAT, is a form of sales tax that's applied to every step in the supply chain. Exactly how business models pass along the cost of the tax is debatable, but economic studies are pretty unanimous that most of the burden gets handed off to the end consumer. Since lower-income households spend more of their budgets on basic consumption, that makes a VAT regressive. It takes a bigger percentage of poor Americans' income than of wealthier Americans' income. UBI should be one of many ways to help people. If he supported Medicare for All and the UBI and a different form of UBI, you could say, oh, great, this is a very progressive candidate. But he doesn't support Medicare for All. So people that have high healthcare costs, is that $1,000 a month really going to help with your cancer payments that are what, like $500,000? No. So this whole thing is just, it's not like, I do think Andrew Yang is a genuine guy, and I do think he means well, but I also don't think he really understands what he's talking about. And he's definitely unwilling to challenge power. He is not somebody clearly that really understands what people are dealing with, especially when it comes to healthcare. I mean, if you really do not support Medicare for All, you really have no connection to people that are dealing with healthcare costs. So as someone who's grown up in a country that's always had healthcare, I never have to think about it. Americans are struggling, millions of Americans are struggling daily with how are they going to afford their health care.
You know, I would like it to have ended there, but even Crystal from the Hill came after Andrew Yang's neck. Let's take a look.
So he says he agrees with the spirit of Bernie's Medicare for All plan, but calls getting rid of private insurance over a short period of time a bit too disruptive. I would not do it. Now, yesterday I tweeted that I found those comments disappointing, and I do, but I did hear your pushbacks on social media, so I wanted to explain a little bit more why I think this positioning is a mistake and ultimately inconsistent with Andrew's overall worldview. So first of all, if you really believe that automation is causing and will continue to cause massive job loss, disrupting the job market in a fourth industrial revolution, few things are more critical to addressing that problem than making sure that every person has good health care and shifting away from our outdated and nonsensical employer-based system. You know, my second point here. Andrew raises as a concern the disruption of getting rid of private insurance. Now, I get that, but two things. First, there's a massive amount of disruption in our system as it exists. Disruption when people lose their jobs, disruption when they change jobs, disruption when their employer just decides to change their coverage. For example, just this week, the Washington Post decided to push their employees into a higher cost, greater risk plan, something that those employees did not want or ask for. It was, in a word, disruptive. Now, I'm not saying that moving to a single-payer system will be easy, but there's nothing about our current high-cost, low-quality, profit-driven sickness industry that is worth preserving. Every year that we delay, it means people being denied care by insurers who are always scheming ways to make a fatter profit. Another year of families paying insane costs that break their budget. Another year of people literally dying for lack of decent care. You want to talk about disruption? The current system is practically designed to disrupt lives, and this is where I think Andrew and I have a fundamental philosophical difference, and this brings me to the second piece here. He speaks of creating a government healthcare system that is so good the private insurers basically close up shop. The problem is that whole idea places an incredible amount of faith in markets, faith that I simply don't share. It assumes that consumers will have perfect information and not be manipulated by millions of dollars in ad buys and other tactics designed to misinform and deceive. Do we really believe that health insurers will just look at the government plan and say, well, you got us, well played, we'll just stop our sickness profiteering and go open a yoga studio or something? Just consider the opioid crisis, where pharmaceutical companies lied to the FDA, lied to doctors, spent millions upon millions pushing their life-destroying drugs, and ultimately created the worst addiction crisis in our nation's history. Or consider the foreclosure crisis, where Americans were deceived into taking on mortgages that they had no hope of paying. Or consider the university system, where sleazy for-profit institutions make big promises to students and leave them with nothing but a massive debt load. There are simply some areas of basic human dignity that capitalism should be kept completely clear of, and healthcare is decidedly one of them.
So all three big YouTubers, all very influential, right? And they haven't sort of went after Yang. We've seen them sort of, I don't want to say fully embrace Yang, but accept him, right? They never really looked at him as like a super progressive, right? He's libertarian, and they've acknowledged him in a sense, like, because of UBI, like, that is a progressive policy. I get it. But he was only one step away from them completely shutting him down. Because, look, you got to understand, they're pro-Bernie. They are pro-Bernie to the nth degree. And a lot of people are jaded. It is undeniable that the DNC screwed Bernie Sanders out of the 2016 election. Right? They screwed him. They played him like an accordion. And they're not having anybody screw up that process. Or even have somebody adopt a Bernie policy and then in their mind see you turn it askew. They're not going to have that. They're going to come at you full force. And now, Yang Gang, you guys are, not to be rivaled. You guys are strong, and you hold your candidate dear to you, right? And it would be a huge blowout for the Yang Gang and the Bernie Bros to bump heads. You guys already don't really get along. Like you guys tolerate each other because look at there's nobody on the Yang Gang side that's going to say Bernie Sanders is a bad person. If you think Bernie Sanders is a bad person, then we got a whole different thing to talk about. We got a whole different video we can get into. Dude's not a bad person. Like, you can't look at Bernie Sanders and be like, yeah, F that guy. Like, that's not happening. And on the flip side, you can't be a Bernie supporter and be like, yeah, I don't mess with that Yang guy. Like, he what an a-hole. Like, you'd be lying. You're a liar. If you're on the Bernie Sanders side and you think Andrew Yang is an a-hole or not authentic, you're a liar. So I see Bernie bros and Yang supporters tolerating each other. But it was only one policy away from going at each other's necks, right? And I had a feeling it was going to be Medicare for all. And that's why I did that video yesterday, because I said, I need you guys to clarify on what is up, because I knew the floodgates were going to open, and they did. And they did. And I know more people are. I wonder if Progressive Voices already said anything. Progressive Voice is probably going to say something. I know Kyle Kalinski's going to come at him. And here's the thing. What, Kyle Kalinski have 700,000 subscribers? It's just little old me. I have 1,400 subs. But a channel like Secular Talk has 700,000. What does Humanist Report have? Like 400,000 or something like that. So they're going to get this word out, and it's going to affect a lot of people. And I don't want that out there without it being understood exactly what Andrew Yang is for. Now, you guys can't even tell me exactly what he's for. If I go and look at my comment section, everybody has little different things as to what he's for. Some people are literally saying, he never said he was for Medicare for all. He's made it quite clear he was never for Medicare for all. And then other people are literally saying, he's for Medicare for all. Trust me, bro, he's for Medicare for all. Andrew Yang's for Medicare for all. And then other people are saying, he's for a version of Medicare for all, but not Medicare. Even you guys are in Yang Gang, and you're all saying different things in the comment section. So that means there needs to be clarification. There needs to be clarity, okay? Because if not even you guys can 100% agree on what he is for, then you can't expect the Bernie bros and let alone the people that are for the Pete Buttigieg's and the Cory Bookers and all these other irrelevant people to understand what he's for. Or the average Joe Schmo who's not in the politics, right? They're going to be even more confused. Well, I thought he was for Bernie Sanders Medicare for all. No, he's not for. They're going to be all over the place. So that's why I came to you guys, because I wanted clarification. Now, some of you said that Andrew Yang in a couple days or so is going to come out with his healthcare plan, his full healthcare plan. And probably then, when he comes out with his full healthcare plan, I'd almost bet my last dollar that he's going to take Medicare for all off of his website. And he's going to put another name, another clever name. Like, there's been Medicare Choice. There's been different names. I feel like Andrew Yang's going to call it something else. Because I don't want to use the word stigma, but the thought of Medicare for all immediately goes to Bernie Sanders and his version of things. Okay? And Andrew Yang needs to separate this. They are not the same person, right? They have different ideas. Right? And Andrew Yang has some incredible ideas. When it comes to automation, nobody's messing with Yang. Okay? And he separated himself with UBI versus federal jobs guarantee. I happen to enjoy UBI more. I feel like that is a better policy. So they're separated there, and they're going to have to separate themselves as far as healthcare goes as well, right? Andrew Yang needs to make himself be known as a separate entity from Bernie Sanders' version of Medicare for all. And look, these progressive YouTubers have come at Yang and probably will come at Yang. And if you believe in what Yang is for, then you should continue to defend him and fight for him. I'm not going to tell anybody here to roll over, right? But even people, and I've gone back to this, and I don't want to go in circles with you guys, but even people that I respect in the field have said that Andrew Yang is for Medicare for all. But let's just be honest, it's not the Bernie Sanders version. Hence, it is not Medicare for all. You can call it Medicare or anything else, but I think Andrew Yang needs to think of a different name for it, because it's just different. His steps in getting there is different. His version of it is different. So have a different name. That's just my opinion. Right? And the Bernie bros are not going to let that go, and they're going to hold his feet to the fire every chance they get, because they know or they feel that Medicare for all should be X, Y, and Z. Okay? And yeah, if these progressive YouTubers want to cover it, that's fine. Just don't smear him. Just make sure they don't smear Yang, because he's a good guy. He's a great guy. He would be an amazing, and I said this in my last video, and I also said in my last video, I would continue to support Yang, right? And will continue to support and cover Yang. So, I don't appreciate any other, big YouTuber smearing him or trying to crap on what he's trying to achieve or what he's trying to do as far as becoming POTUS. If they want to, cover it in a journalistic way about how they feel he's not for Medicare for all, the differences, or, you name it, then I think that's fine too. I personally can't be mad at them for covering it, just like you guys should not be mad at them for covering it, nor should anybody be mad at me for covering the situation. But yeah, I'll end it with this. Yang is for a version of Medicare for all. His own version of Medicare for all. It is not the Bernie Sanders version. And my advice would be to change the name into something else, just like they did Medicare Choice, Medicare for all who want it. Come up with your own name to differentiate yourself from Bernie Sanders, and that will take some of the heat off. And I just want to thank you guys for, sharing with me your experiences and sharing with me what your take on what he was saying is. I really appreciate it, and you gave me a lot to research and look into. The differences, between Canada and I guess Germany and all these other places. It was very much appreciated. So if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. If you don't, let me know in the comment section why. I'm always down to talk about it. Also, I have a Venmo and a PayPal link in the description below. If you want to donate to Read My Lips to help my channel grow, I'd greatly appreciate it. Every little bit helps. Hopefully I'll be talking to you guys soon. Have a good one. Peace.